high day begins in the evening, not the day. The day doesn't begin in the evening, or he would have gave us that instruction at the very beginning here in chapter 23, verse 3, when he talks about the Shabbat. He never says that the Shabbat starts in the evening here, okay? The Pesach, the Passover, he talks about when you're supposed to do this. He says at evening. Okay, he brings up the word evening because we know we're supposed to do that. What about the Feast of Unleavened Bread? Well, it doesn't tell us here, but let's go to Exodus chapter 12, where it does give us a little more information how to eat the matzah, or what we call the unleavened bread. Notice here, it says this in Exodus chapter 12, and it says, let me find it here. In the first month, on the 14th day in the new moon, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new month in the evening. Okay? So it's telling you when to eat this bread and when to stop eating this bread from evening to evening. It has nothing to do with the day. It has to do with the feast. Okay? Same thing with the Passover. He talks about the Passover. You shall slay it. They put here between, which is why I cross it out, because it should say at evening, because you're supposed to slay it at evening, which is why the Messiah in Matthew chapter 20, I think it's 25 or 26, where he ate the Passover at evening. When evening had came, they broke the bread and they ate the Passover. He kept the Passover according to the commandments. Okay, and so the same thing it is for what we know as the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement was to be done in the evening. Okay, and this is why it says in this whole part, you see that I have it sectioned off here with this line because it's talking about Yom Kippurim, also known as the Day of Atonement. Okay, so let's read this whole thing so you see that there is no breaking of what I'm trying to share with you. It says here, and Yahuwah told Moshe, also known as Moses, saying, on the 10th day of the 7th new month is Yom HaKippurim. It shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And you do no work on that same day, for it is Yom Kippurim, to make atonement for you before Yahuwah your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, notice we're talking about the Day of Atonement, he or she shall be cut off from their people. And any being who does any work on that same day, what day is that? Again, the Day of Atonement, that being shall be destroyed from the midst of their people. You do no work, a law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of rest to you. What is the Sabbath of rest? That day, that same day is going to be a Sabbath of rest. Why? Because you are to not do any work on that day. Any person who does work on that day shall be cut off from their people. It's a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. Again, you shall fast for that day. On the 9th day of the new month at evening, from evening to evening, you are to observe your Shabbat, your rest. Okay, and then he goes on into another feast day, which has to do with the Feast of Tabernacles. But this day is talking specifically about the Day of Atonement. This is why it says the 9th day at evening, from evening to evening, you are to observe your Sabbath. So now let's go and look at this on the calendar that we use. Let's look at this 7th month on the 10th day and the 9th day. So let's go to the 7th month. Here it is, Kadash. You see it here where my mouse is hovering over. Kadash 7. Okay, Kadash 7 is the 7th month. Okay, so we see here these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we have 9. You can see it's visible there, and we have 10. Now, as I stand back, and so you can see this, notice what it says here. Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, fast, sundown on the 9th until sundown on the 10th, high day, Shabbat, Leviticus 23, verses 26 to 32. Now imagine this whole box here, just like this box here, this would be a full day. You have your day portion, and imagine a line here, and that would be your night portion. So here you can see that. Here's the 9th day, the whole box, and then you have a box within the box that's straddling the 9th day and the 10th day. Okay, this straddling box here that goes on the 9th day and the 10th day, this is your Shabbat from evening to evening. So this is the day portion, this is the night portion, this is the day portion, this is the 9th portion. Okay, so When the day portion, you can work on the 9th day. But when evening comes, you're supposed to start your fast. You don't eat no dinner that day. You start in the evening. You start your sundown fast. And you keep that Sabbath rest all the way through. Even the 10th day during the day portion, you are not to work on that 10th day. This is why he says any being who works on that day shall be cut off from their people, because you work during the day period. When the evening comes, you are now done from that fast. You can eat that evening. You can eat that night. And guess what? The next day is a Sabbath. Okay? That's the Sabbath. And that Sabbath is going to be from sunrise to sunrise, which takes you into the first day of the week. But this is what is being spoken of here when it talks about you are to keep your Sabbath from evening to evening, the evening of the 9th to the evening of the 10th. And this is your rest day right here in the middle. Okay? It's very simple. Very simple. This is your rest day. This is Yah's rest day. This is why he says that this is a rest unto Yah. This is a rest for you. Okay? Different. Two different things. I hope that makes sense for you, Gloria. And slow your wheels from spinning. And some of you other ones out there, slow your wheels from spinning and allow the Ruach to teach you. Not me. It's not Brother Jimmy teaching you. I'm just showing you from the scriptures what the scripture says so that you understand on the 9th day in the new month at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Sabbath. It doesn't say every Sabbath you are to observe it from evening to evening, because again, if that was the case at the very beginning of Leviticus chapter 23, verse 3, he would have told you, but 7 days are but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest. He doesn't say anything about evening to evening here. Why? Because it was already understood. They were taught here in Exodus. Going to keep the Shabbat. This is why I'm telling you, read Exodus chapter 16 to yourself and allow him to teach you. Because notice what he says here, verse 4. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, you know him as Moses, see, I am raining bread from the heavens for you. He doesn't say anything about raining meat of quail for you. He's talking about this bread. Okay, what we know is manna. I am going to rain bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion of what? Of manna, this bread that came down from heaven every day, in order to try them, in order to test them, whether they walk in my law, my Torah, or not. And it shall be on the 6th day, notice that, they shall prepare portion. Why on the 6th day? Because the 7th day they're going to rest. You're not going to find it on the 7th day. So he says here, at evening you shall know that Yahuwah has brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of Mitzrayim, and in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahuwah. Okay, so he goes on and says here, in that Yahuwah gives you meat to eat in the evening. So he was giving them meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to satisfaction. Now notice what he did. He didn't teach them through what was coming down every evening. He taught them what was coming down every morning. And so it goes on and he says here, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, I have heard the grumbling of the children of Yasharal. Speak to them, saying, at the evening you are to eat meat, and in the morning you are to be satisfied with bread, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And notice what I put here, last mention of quail. And it says here, and it came to be that quails came up at evening and covered the camp, and in the morning dew laid all around the camp. The layer of the dew went up, and see, on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance as fine as frost on the ground. And the children of Yasharal saw, and they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, it is the bread which Yahuwah is giving you to eat. Now notice again, if we go back to the previous page, he says what? I am raining bread from the heavens for you. And he's going to use this to try the people. He didn't use quail because why? If he wanted to let them know that the day begins in the evening, then surely he would have used quail to teach them, because it was coming down every evening. But he didn't. He used what was coming down every morning. And when did they pick this stuff up? Notice it says here, And the children of Yashrael did so as was gathered, some more, some less, and they measured it by omers. And he gathered much and did not, and they have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered according to their need. And Moshe said, let no one leave any of it until morning. And they did not listen to Moshe, so some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms, and it stank, and Moshe was angry with them, and they gathered it every morning. Why? Because Yahuwah was testing them every morning to see if they were going to follow what he said. Because why? Each one according to his need, and when the sun became hot, it melted. So you know this wasn't given during the high time of the day. It wasn't given in the evening. It was given every morning. And it came to be on the sixth day that they gathered twice as much bread. Why? Because this was a sign that they were given double, twice as much, 2 omers of each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe, and he said to them, this is what Yahuwah has said. Tomorrow is a rest, a Sabbath set apart to Yahuwah, not to you. Like Leviticus 23 verse 32 said, your Sabbath rest is your Sabbath rest. No, this rest belongs to Yahuwah. So that's why it says that which you bake, that which you cook, and you can lay it up for yourselves in the morning. And it did not stink, and it did not create any worms. Why? Because this was supernaturally held together to where they can eat it on the 7th day, because it would not turn into worms and it would not stink. And this is why Moshe said, eat it today, for today is the Sabbath. How did they know today was the Sabbath? How did they know that today was a Sabbath? Because he says, today you do not find it in the field. When would they go find it in the field? They would find it when they would go and look for it every morning, because they gathered it every morning. Well, on this 7th day, they didn't find any of it. Why? Because today is the Sabbath. It started in the morning. Today you do not find it in the field. So you gather it 6 days, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, there is none. Why? Because when you go out of your tent in the morning, Israel, you're not going to see it outside of your tent. This is letting you know today begins the Sabbath. Very simple. Very simple. But it came to be that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, how long shall you refuse to guard or to keep my commandments and my Torah, my laws, plural? This is why he says, see, because Yahuwah has given you the Sabbath, therefore he has given you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. When did they find this 2 days worth of food on the 6th day? In the morning, not in the evening, in the morning. Okay, so I see I lost some of the people because they're probably not wanting to hear this message, but it's the truth. You can keep on continuing to keep your Sabbath from evening to evening, but that is not what Yahuwah said. And by doing so, you don't know the day or what the 4th commandment says. You are to remember the Sabbath and keep it set apart. But if you're keeping a portion of the Sabbath and you think that the other portion is not the Sabbath, you're breaking the 4th commandment. Know the sign between him and his people. Between him and his people, it is from sunrise to sunrise. It is not from evening to evening. Okay, so we can move on to another subject. I think we beat that horse up enough. Yes, 2 months from now, will this be a Jubilee year? Praise, I am not sure if it is or not. I don't know. There are people who are making speculations that we're already in the Jubilee year, which is now, or it could be next year. To be honest, I don't know if anyone truly knows. I think there are those that are trying to look into the matter. The only way we will know that we are in what we know as the Jubilee year is going to be when the Messiah returns, because that's when everything goes back to the way it's supposed to be, which means that we go back to our tribes. The land is given back to Yahusha, who it belongs to. Everything that it says in Leviticus chapter 25 about the year of the Yobalim, and also the blowing of the shofar, which would be the last trumpet. Masha David, just DM me and we'll go from there and I will send it to you. Oh, speaking of which, about the calendar, brothers and sisters, the calendar that has been sent out to you is probably going to also work for next year. We won't know for certain until March 20th, which is the day that the spring equinox should occur. If it does, then the calendar that we have will work again for the next following year. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let me take you here to the very beginning. Okay, so the first month, right? And we know that the first day of the spring equinox is the first day of the year. Now, the only thing that's going to let us know if it's going to line up with our pagan days is if it lands on the 20th of March. If it does, then you can use this calendar again for another year. Okay. The only time that you're going to have an issue with this calendar is going to be when we get to February, because the person who put this together had accidentally, and I say accidentally, they added February, and they added an extra day to February as if it was the leap year. And so you'll see here, February 28th, this year, there's only 28 days in February, or the one that's coming up, we just passed. But this February coming up now is only going to have 28 days. It won't have 29 days. Okay, so from that point, it's going to be off. But that's at the end of the year. The beginning of the year, it won't have that problem because we would have already passed February and we would be in March. Okay, so I just got to wait for that to pick back up. But let's go back here. Okay. So here, again, February 28th will already be gone because we're dealing with March 20th. So March 20th is supposed to be the first day of the year. And the reason why I'm saying that this should work, and we won't know until that time comes. Let's go to the ending of the year. Let me bring this down, let it populate again. Okay, so here, the 12th month, okay. And here we are in January, or I shouldn't even say that month, but we're in this first month of the pagan year. And then next month, we'll be in this month, okay, this pagan month, all right. And so once it's all done, because of this being the 28th day and they have a 29th, that should actually be the first day of the third month in the pagan year. Okay, that should be the first of March. So that would be the first day right here. Instead of saying 29th, it should say the first day. This is still the numbers of the month is still the same on Yah's calendar. Yah's calendar is correct. It's the pagan days that are messed up. Okay, so when the 28th day is done, this should be the first of the third month of the pagan day. So that would make this the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. This would be the last day of the year. Okay, even on the pagan day, 18th day. 19th day we don't count. Okay, because that's the 365th day of the solar cycle. And then we have the spring equinox. That should be March, or here I said it again, but the 20th day of the third month. So if that's the case, this calendar shall work again. Okay. Yeah, we need a new calendar for sure. But the person who makes this, I was told they do not make it anymore. So either I'm going to have to make one and send it out, or we find someone else who does. Like I said, I have so much on my plate already to even do that. It's going to take some time. But if anybody wants to take on the task, which would be wonderful, if somebody wants to do that, just take this as a format and just make sure that you don't add that extra day of February, or the second week, or the second month, I should say, and make it 28. Mr. Liu, there's only 12 months in Yah's calendar, and that is according to the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees. There is no 13th month. The 13th month and all of those erroneous teachings are from people who want to change Yah's calendar, and they've made it into what we know as the Hillel 2 calendar, and people who just want to cause confusion. I mean, because Yahuwah's calendar only has 12 months. Yeah, anyone who wants to take on the task, I mean, if you do, I'll be more than happy to send it out to everybody and give them a copy of the calendar that you make. We just have to test it out and make sure. But again, we don't know specifically for certain until spring equinox happens that it's going to happen on that day. What we know is the 20th of the third month of the pagan year, of the pagan month. Okay, so we won't know that until that time comes. Yahuwah wins. There are people who are teaching that, but that is not scriptural. Again, I can go into it here, and let me just show you, because I think it is fascinating. And again, there are people who don't recognize this, but let's go to John chapter 5. And Yahuwah wins. I want you to see this, because you probably never heard someone talk about this before. But there are people out there, especially this so-called ministry called Straight as the Gate. And again, this is just my opinion. And you may say I'm biased, but I'm not. You need to stay away from those people. They do not know what they're talking about. They have a very terrible demeanor about themselves. They're all about themselves, and the way they talk, they all have the same spirit on them. It's weird, and they're very prideful and boastful, and they even use vulgar language when they're explaining stuff, which blew me away. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're over here saying this, and at the same time you're over here cursing? It is just ridiculous. But anyhow, and the guy talks like he's, like he's a madman, like if that's the way a person's supposed to look. But it's crazy. Anyhow, let's look at what the scripture says. I only say that because they're one of the ones that is teaching that you're not in the land, so you can't keep the feast days. That's what got us into this mess to begin with, is because of our disobedience. Okay, that's why there is no temple anymore, and hence why the Messiah had to come. So now we pick up the story from when the Messiah came. And so notice what he says to this woman here. Okay, and let me make sure I'm in the right spot. Nope, that's actually 4. I don't know why I said 5. I meant 4. Okay, so here we see that in the 4th chapter of Yohanan, and it says here, Yaakov's fountain. Okay, so let me back up. So when the master knew that the Pharisees had heard that Yahusha made and immersed more taught ones than Yohanan, although Yahusha himself did not immerse, but his taught ones, he left Yehuda and went away again to Galilee. And he had to pass through Shamaron, which we know is Samaria. So he came to a city of Shamaron, also in Samaria, called Shechem, near the piece of land Yaakov gave to his son Joseph. And Yaakov's fountain was there. So Yahusha, being wearied from the journey, was sitting thus at the fountain. It was about the 6th hour. That would be around 12 noon. Okay, so it was high day. A woman of Shamaron, or Samaritan woman, came to draw water. And Yahusha said to her, "Give me to drink." For his taught ones had gone off into the city to buy food. The woman of Shamaron, or Samaria, therefore said to him, "How is it that you, being a Yahudi, ask a drink from me, a woman of Shamaron? For Yahudim do not associate with the Shamaronim, or with the Samaritans." And Yahusha answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of Elohim, and who it is who says to you, 'Give me to drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Master, you have no vessel, and the well is deep. From where then do you have living water? Are you greater than our father Yaakov or Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, and his sons, and his cattle?" And Yahusha answered and said to her, "Everyone drinking of this water shall thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water I give him shall certainly never thirst, and the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life." The woman said to him, "Master, give me this water so that I do not thirst, nor come here to draw." Yahusha said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." And the woman answered and said, "I have no husband." Yahusha said to her, You have well said, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. Now notice here, now we're getting ready to get into the matter of what we're talking about. The woman said to him, Master, I see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped, key word there, our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say in Jerusalem is the place where one needs to worship. Now, isn't Jerusalem where he has placed his name? Isn't that where the temple is at? Of course it is, right? At this time when he was speaking to this woman. And so it goes on and says, but you people say that Jerusalem is the place where one needs to worship. Again, notice the word worship. Now Yahusha said to her, this is his answer to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you shall neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because the deliverance, salvation is of the Yahudim, of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship, there's that word again, the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father does seek such to worship him. Again, there's that word. Elohim is spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and truth. So what is he saying? He's saying that there's going to come a day that you are no longer going to bring your offerings, your sacrifices, all of the things that was told to us, the ordinances of the sacrifices, all of that stuff is no longer going to be done on this mountain or in Jerusalem, because everyone needs to worship him in spirit and in truth. For such is the Father. That's who he wants everyone to worship him in this manner, in spirit and truth. Okay, when did this happen? Because he says, and now is, he says, but the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth. So when did this happen? Let me take you. If we go over here to Matthew chapter 27, notice what it says. And it says here again, and see the veil, here in verse 51, and see the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two. Oh, let me back up. Verse 50. And Yahusha cried out again with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. He gave up his spirit. Okay, so now we know he was unalive. And it says, see, the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth was shaken and the rocks were split. When this happened, Yahuwah wins. Okay, when this happened, this is when his spirit left the building. It was no longer on top of the Ark of the Testimony. It was no longer on the so-called mercy seat. He now dwells in the hearts of men. This is what Shaul was talking about when you read this in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and chapter 6. Let's go to the one in chapter 6. It says here, or do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart Spirit, who is in you, which you have from Elohim, and you are not your own? We are that dwelling place. Same thing he says in chapter 3 of the same book, right? Where is it here? Verse 16, do you not know that you are the dwelling place of Elohim, that the spirit of Elohim dwells in you? If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Elohim, Elohim shall destroy him or her, for the dwelling place of Elohim is set apart, which you are. So now we are to worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, do we do all the sacrificial laws? No, because we know that that has been done away with. He took that away, as we can read that in Hebrews chapter 8. Okay, so all that has been done, but we still observe those days. So when we go back and we look at Leviticus chapter 23, and let's go back over there. Leviticus 23. And notice what he says here about these feast days, right? Now, we know we're supposed to keep the Shabbat. Just because we're no longer in the land, that doesn't mean that we don't keep the Shabbat. Because we're no longer in the land, that'd be foolish. It's the same thing with the Pesach, okay? We know that we're no longer going to slaughter a 1-year-old male without any spot or blemish lamb. because there's no need to. Why? Let's go over here to 1 Corinthians again, and let's come back here to Leviticus chapter 23. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, notice what it says here. Let me put my bookmark here. Okay, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Notice here it says this. Verse 7, therefore cleanse out the old leaven so that you are a new lump. This is talking about the unleavened bread, okay, as you are unleavened. For also the Messiah, our Pesach, was slaughtered for us. So then let us celebrate the festival, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of evil and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, which is the same as in spirit and in truth. Okay, now mind you, he's saying this to the assembly in Corinth. Do you know how far Corinth is from Jerusalem? He didn't have to go back all the way to Jerusalem to keep this feast day, this Passover. No, he's telling them to celebrate this. Okay, and they're to celebrate it where they're at, because again, the Messiah says, no longer are you going to worship on this mountain or the mountain in Jerusalem. You're going to worship him where you are, because you're going to worship him in spirit and in truth. And since you are the body, you are the dwelling place of Elohim, you are where he has written his name. His name is upon us. Do you not know? This is why it says this even in Revelation about the 144,000, and they are just the first fruits. They're not the only ones that have this on their forehead, but this is what's going to happen to all of us. So it says here in verse 3 of Revelation chapter 7, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. Okay, and what are they going to have upon their foreheads? The name of the Messiah, the name of the Father. And I believe that's what it says here. Let me see here. Where does it say that? I don't know why it just all of a sudden hit 32. Hold on one second here. Messenger, the earth living for. I am looking for the passage where it says that they have the name of the Father on their foreheads. I don't see it here at the very moment. But they do have the name of the Father upon their foreheads. Okay, and so that's what it is. Is it for? No, I don't see it there. Are you talking about, when you say for, Victoria, what are you saying? For what? I can't find it. I don't see it at this very moment. For some reason, I thought it had it here, but it doesn't. But yeah, so you kind of get the idea of what is being told to us, right? That we are the body. We are the body of the Messiah. He has placed his name upon us, his people. Verse 4, sealed. Oh, yes, I know. I see that. But what I'm looking for is where it says, it specifically says his name. Oh, okay. Swank. Thank you. Chapter 14. Yes, that's where it is. Thank you. Thank you, Aki. Chapter 14, verse 1, and I looked and saw the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. So you see the Father's name is written upon their foreheads. Why? Because they are the temple. Each one of us is his temple. So when you put it all together, you're getting the understanding that yes, the feast days are still supposed to be kept. So now when we go back to Leviticus 23, and it says certain wordings like this, that you are to eat matzah for 7 days. Okay, that's what you're to do. You eat it for 7 days. Okay, and you have a set apart gathering on the first day, and you have a set apart gathering on the last day. Okay, so it says here on the first day you have a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. We're going to keep that. We're not going to say, no, we can't do that because we're not in the land. No, we do that because we are his people. This is what caused us to be separated from him to begin with, because we weren't keeping any of this stuff. We weren't being obedient. We were being disobedient. That's why we were thrusted out of the land, so that the land would have its Sabbath up from us. And so he says here, and then you're to also do it on the last day, the seventh day, a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. So again, we're going to keep that day. We're not going to work on that day. Now, we're not going to be slaughtering lambs and goats. We don't do that. We know all of that has been done away with. But as far as observing those days, you are to observe those days. Those days have not gone anywhere. This is why you'll see it constantly over and over. He says what? A law unto your generations, right? Let me see here. So here we have the Feast of First Fruits. And it says here, a law forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. Yeah, we're going to keep that. We're not going to say, no, we're not, because we're not in the land anymore. That's just foolishness. That's what got people caught up to begin with. And so this is why I'm saying those people who talk about this stuff, they are in error. They are totally in error. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, it says here, from the day that you brought the sheave wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbath, which we're supposed to do. And we do that. This is how we come to the point of counting to the 50th day. That is what we know as Shavuot, or the Feast of Pentecost. Okay, and we're going to do that. Why? Because it says here, it says, on this same day, you shall proclaim a set apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever. Not while you're in the land. This is a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. You see that? In all your dwellings, wherever you live, wherever you may find yourself, that's in all your dwellings. So again, you have people who, because people don't study their word and they just speak into your life and you don't go back and look at it, you're going to be led astray. Oh, that makes sense. Since there is no temple, there is no high priest, there is no priesthood, we can't keep these days anymore. We might as well just leave it away and just let it go because we don't have the temple anymore. And so this is why you have to rightly divide the word of truth for yourself. Do not listen to me. Do not listen to anyone else. You listen to what Yahuwah has told you, what he has written in his Torah, and you do what he has called you to do. Don't follow these people. These people are leading you astray, and you're going to find yourselves on the wrong side of eternity. I'm telling you, you're doing yourself a disservice to do that. And you see this constantly. All of these things are to be kept. All of them. We don't bring any kind of offering made by fire. Your offering made by fire now is the fruit of your lips. Your lips is what gives him service. Your lips is how you praise him. Our mouth, the words that we say, we're giving him adoration and praise. This is our due service to him. This is what we're to do. Okay? So I hope I answered that question for you.